Igore, ja ću početi na našem jeziku, onda ćemo nastaviti na engleskom. I want to know how was it for you as a correspondent, as a journalist who's covering Congress, to be here in this building behind us on 6th of January?
It was incredibly surreal to be here when this was happening. It's something that none of us thought would ever happen here. Coming to work in Congress, as you can see, there's security everywhere, police everywhere usually. We felt like it was the safest place in the city to come. You go through metal detectors, there's SWAT teams, there's loads and loads of police. And for something like that to happen here really pierced the veil for us in terms of security and how we feel working in this building. And, it's a tragedy because there's a huge community of people who work here every day who had to go through this, and people died, and policemen were beat and murdered. And so, you had all these things happen. There was one of the darkest days, really, in our democracy.
What we saw in front, it was not on this side, it was on the other side, that the protesters basically run over journalistic equipment, swearing to journalists. And this concept of, fake news media, lying media, this kind of media, that kind of media, in this time of disinformation and lies, basically created this kind of havoc in the capital city of the United States. For you as a journalist, how is it to work in the age of disinformation, misinformation, and when the finger is always pointed at you?
It's really disheartening. It used to be that if you had photo evidence of something, people would believe you. And nowadays, even that doesn't hold true anymore. I still get people coming up to me telling me that the footage that I took of January 6th of Capitol Police Officer Goodman running down the steps and confronting the mob, that was all fake, that it was staged, that I was somehow in on it. And it really speaks to how far we've gone off the center in our democracy, in our culture here, where people can just discount what they see with their actual eyes and call it a lie, and that's how badly off track we've gone.
That's what I wanted to ask you, because you were one of these voices from within the building during the attack on Capitol. And what you just said, you filmed this attack on the officer, you were tweeting like, there's no tomorrow, you were like the first source of information, but still you experienced, and what you just described, and also insults and all this stuff. How do you see, balance that is now disbalance, that traditional media is like maybe losing the game to social media and what's going on around us?
Yeah, as you said, the balance is not balanced anymore. The difference now, and I think between prior elections, is that you have a big swath of one half of the political establishment here supporting that effort. You have Donald Trump, who's now running for president again. You have his allies in Congress firmly on board with some of these things, calling into question events that happened, glorifying January 6th. I was at a Trump rally in South Carolina a couple days ago where they celebrate January 6th, and they call for the release of people who stormed the Capitol who are convicted now. So you have this whole nostalgia effort to absolve him and the people who contributed of blame. And I think that's something that's yet to be resolved here, and this coming election is going to be really critical. And I worry about, are we going to see another January 6th here again?
What can happen if Trump wins or if he loses the election, both sides?
Well, I think there's a very good chance that he won't concede if he loses. Now, the polls are looking pretty bad for Joe Biden. They say right now, if the election was held today, that he would lose. We're still quite a bit away. The campaign hasn't really shifted into a general election campaign, so we don't really know yet what's going to happen. But, if he does lose, I think there is a real chance that something like that does happen again, because a lot of the people that support him still believe that January 6th was a good thing to happen, that they were performing a legitimate act here to try to stop democracy from happening.
You've said the word democracy, and that is also in question because Trump says he's like the beacon of this democracy and freedom, and we had Joe Biden initiating something that he calls defense of democracy or alliance of democratic states in the world, covering the representative body of United States of America, talking to the MPs here. what's your sense? Do they understand democracy in the same way?
I think that privately, a lot of Republicans will tell you that this is not something that they support. What they struggle with is coming out publicly and pushing back on it, because so many people in the Republican Party now support Trump. Trump is the only person they've seen up there and do all these things in office. So politically, they find it very hard to criticize him and speak out against him. And I think some of them are thinking that if they just ride it out, he's got a couple more years left, we'll ride this out, we will reestablish the old Ronald Reagan type of traditional conservatism eventually. But I don't really see that happening. Today the Republican Party has changed. It used to be a party that wanted to stand up to autocrats and strongmen, people like Vladimir Putin. Now it's very much a USA, us first, America first party. Let's worry about that later. So I think they've really made a deal with the devil here, so to say.
Talking about what newsrooms can do, what you can do as a journalist here to kind of counter that, to fight it. We see, in Europe, a lot of effort on, against disinformation, but what you can do here?
It's really critical that people support journalism. And when I mean journalism, I mean pay for people's work. It's been a really brutal year here in the USA and all around the world in terms of the people who have lost jobs. A lot of media operations have gone under. It's really hard to sustain good journalism. So I think we need to make more of an effort to convince readers of news, consumers of news, that if you want this to continue, if you want a check on people in power, it's important to support that work.
When we talk about new forms of life, I'm joking, but when we talk about AI and generative AI, you've mentioned how no one believed the photo you've taken. What can we expect in these elections?
It's really scary, some of the things that are coming out right now. Fake images, real-looking fake images of both Joe Biden and Trump. There was a couple of weeks ago, there was a fake recorded robocall poll that was a phone call that was telling people not to support Joe Biden. And I think you're going to expect to see a lot more of things like that. People on the right, conservatives online, are distributing fake images of Donald Trump with African American voters to present some kind of image that he is doing well with black voters to try to win their appeal. So I think you're going to see more of this kind of stuff continue as we get closer to the election.
And at the end, your message from the States to Europe, because we saw what happened, we had an experience of 2016 in Europe with Brexit, in the United States. Now, 8 years later, where are we in terms of, trust within our societies?
I think it's badly damaged. I think we're trying our best to get to some sort of center, but I think this election is really critical right now, and I worry about our status, I worried about this place. I don't think we're back to normal yet, and I think it's key that the U.S. and its allies stick together and try to piece the coalition back as well as they can.
Foreign influences, it was a big story here in 2016. Now it's in Europe because of the war in Ukraine, and we see also Israel-Hamas war. How big of an issue is it still here?
Oh, it's huge. A lot of the people that you see online aren't really people at all. They're bots, often financed by foreign governments, who echo the same message that you see abroad, and that they're invading our culture and our discussions online, and essentially spreading lies. Same lies that led to January 6th about voter fraud, about rigged elections that are happening all over again.
So any hope on the horizon?
I hope that good people who saw what happened here, and there are, even in the Republican Party, there are people who still believe that what happened in January 6th was bad. It was a bad event. It shouldn't have happened. That they will continue to see reason. And, when faced with some of these efforts, they'll reject them.
And maybe for the end, how do you explain at all the possibilities the possibility of things like QAnon, conspiracies, being at the center of, a policy of someone who was the president of the United States?
I wish I could. I really wish I could. You know, I think for Trump, he tends to pull in anybody who supports him, and you know, as long as you're for him, he will welcome you into his camp. If you criticize him, you're dead to him. So I don't think he has any sort of restraint, and you know, whether it's QAnoners or white extremists or you know any group like that, as long as you're for him, he's going to bring you in the tent. And I think it should be more of an onus on top Republican Party officials to reject those efforts.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.